Ellie had planned a sweet dessert of strawberries with cream to enjoy in bed after a pleasant walk on the beach near their rented cabin. It was a cool September night, just a Friday before their 10th wedding anniversary. She was aware that her husband, Will, had secretly planned a Caribbean cruise for the following week. He didn't think she knew, but Will's best friend and business partner, Cy Parker, had accidentally let it slip. She was especially excited about the romantic horseback rides on the beach they would have during their stops. They would surely be perfect for some alone time. Will and Cy met during their sophomore year at Duke University while studying business, becoming close friends and fraternity brothers in Sigma Epsilon. After graduation, they founded a technology company that helped high school students in their university search. With over 2.9 million students entering college annually in the U.S., they saw a significant market. 3 years after founding the company, they broke even, and by the 12th year, each was earning $250,000 after taxes and expenses. They continually improved their product using market research, aiming to be acquired by a major tech company in 3 years and then move on to a new project. Will met Ellie during his second year after college in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he and Cy had established their business. Ellie worked at a horse farm north of Charlotte. Will and Cy visited the farm with their team for an afternoon ride, and Will felt an immediate attraction to her. After getting her phone number from a coworker, Will nervously waited 3 days before sending her a message. Ellie, who had felt a connection during the ride, agreed to meet for coffee. 11 months later, they got married and spent their honeymoon horseback riding in the Maroon Bells near Aspen. Like many young couples, Will and Ellie's intimate life had its ups and downs. They were comfortable with their bodies, but learning how to satisfy each other and communicate their preferences took time. On the other hand, Cy had a reputation as a womanizer. Ellie had introduced him to some of her friends, but after he ended things with each of them in a month or two, she decided to keep her friends away from him. Although she got along well with Cy, she disapproved of his dating habits, considering them immature. Cy, 6 feet 2 inches tall, with dark hair and deep brown eyes, was quite handsome and enjoyed the thrill of dating. Unlike Will, who was shorter with blonde hair and blue eyes, Cy quickly lost interest in women after the initial excitement. Ellie often scolded him for this behavior. "Cy, you can't just sleep with them and then move on," she told him one day. "Sure I can," he responded. "I never promise love or commitment, and they're all consenting adults. Besides, if I ever meet someone like you, I'd consider settling down." Turning to Will, he added, "Right, brother? Don't drag me into this," Will wisely responded, understanding his wife's expression. He just wanted to avoid any conflict. 9 months ago, Cy came close to his goal of being with his business partner's wife, Ellie. Despite her annoyance with him, she saw it as part of the game. For years, he had asked her to introduce him to her attractive single friends. She did but regretted it, as Cy would end these relationships quickly, which frustrated Ellie. Cy enjoyed their closeness and used these brief relationships to gather information about Ellie, skillfully gaining the trust of women and learning about her through innocent questions. Cy knew he needed to be patient and adopted a long-term approach. He genuinely cared about his business partner, Will, and had no intention of hurting him. Their company was thriving, and Cy valued their friendship and partnership. For Cy, it was all about the challenge, which he called the dance. He believed he could have any woman, single or married, with enough effort. Ellie was particularly appealing because she was beautiful, intelligent, happily married, and not interested in him. Cy had no plans to hurt Will. Once he had won Ellie over, he would enjoy the affair for a while and then persuade her to end it out of guilt. They would meet occasionally, and Will would never find out. Cy even planned to teach Ellie how to better satisfy Will, ensuring everything ran smoothly. For years, Cy tested Ellie's patience, infuriating her before apologizing profusely. She would scold him and complain to Will, but Cy softened her with his charming smile and small gifts, like dark chocolate or a scarf. When she hugged him and said, "I still hate you, but you can be really nice when you try," he knew he was back in her good graces. In late January, Cy made a move. Before Christmas, he went out and got involved with Joe, who worked with Ellie in the stables. Joe was adventurous and lively, and they quickly became close. Despite enjoying his time with Joe, Cy remained focused on his true goal, Ellie. On January 23, Cy was at Will and Ellie's house for a day of football, watching the AFC and NFC championship games. Ellie's phone rang, and she left the room. Cy and Will overheard part of her conversation. "Hey Joe, what's up?" "What? No way, he did that." "Joe, calm down and tell me what happened." Then they heard a chair in the kitchen collapse, followed by loud footsteps in the hallway. Ellie shouted, "That jerk. I'm going to end him." Then there was a loud bang. Will glanced at Cy, knowing exactly what had happened. "Seriously, man. You broke another heart." "I'm sorry, Will. I know this makes things harder with Ellie, but she just wasn't right for me. I couldn't keep leading her on. When are you going to grow up? Why don't you wait until you really care about someone before you sleep with them? Watch a movie or something if you need to, but keep your hands off my wife's friends. She's mad at you for a while, then she's mad at me for at least a week. And that means no intimacy for me, man. I'm really sorry. I need to listen to you and get my act together. One of these days, I might really mess up." A few minutes later, Ellie stormed into the room and confronted Cy. "You're an idiot, Cy. A complete jerk." "I'm sorry," he replied. "Joe's a good girl, but I just—" "Shut up, Cy. Joe isn't just a good girl, she's one of my best friends. I told you not to mess with her feelings." "I know, I just—" "Shut up." Ellie yelled, increasingly upset. She grabbed a pillow from the couch and started hitting him with it. She was crying. "You always use them and then toss them aside. Why, Cy? What are you after that you can't be decent with someone as amazing as Joe?" Cy managed to stand up and move around the couch, trying to put some space between himself and Ellie, who was hitting him with the pillow. It was just a pillow, but she was strong and hitting hard. As she paused to catch her breath, Cy quickly grabbed his jacket and headed for the front door. "You're overreacting, Ellie. I'm really sorry about Joe, but I think it's best if I leave now and let you cool off. Maybe we can talk when you're calmer." With that, he was almost out the door. "Calm down. Cool off," she shouted, following him closely. "You hurt my friends, and then you tell me to calm down." She threw the pillow as he closed the door to avoid her final attack, but she was so upset that she opened the door again and chased him down the sidewalk. Will sat on the couch, deciding it was best to stay out of this fight. "I'm not done with you, Cy Parker. Get back here." Ellie shouted as she followed him to his car. Cy had parked in front of the house, not in the driveway, and a hedge blocked the view from the house to the street. They were alone. Cy raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "All right, Ellie, just wait a minute," Cy said more calmly. "First, it's about 82 degrees Fahrenheit 28 degrees Celsius out here, and you're barefoot and only wearing a t-shirt. You should go back inside before you catch a cold." He didn't want her to get sick from the cold, but he couldn't help but notice how cold she felt. Her teeth were chattering, but she didn't stop. "Forget it, Parker," she said, starting to cry again. "Why, Cy? Why are you such a jerk to my friends and to women in general? What's your problem?" This was the moment Cy had been waiting for. He put on his most innocent expression and replied, "Do you really want to know, Ellie? Are you sure you want me to tell you? Once I do, there's no going back." Ellie was a little surprised by his sudden vulnerability. She had always thought of him as shallow, but now he was showing a different and more intriguing side of himself. "Yes, Cy," she said, calmer now. "Please, tell me. Ellie, you're the reason I can't stay with any of the other women. I know you're married, and to my best friend, no less, but every time I'm with someone else, all I can think about is you. Yours is the only face I want to see. I'm sorry, Ellie, but I'm in love with you. All I want is to be with you. Sigh, we can't. I mean, I'm flattered, and I care about you, but we can't do this. There's a thin line between anger and passion, and although she didn't realize it at the time, Sigh was about to push her beyond that line, and she would go willingly. He didn't let her finish her sentence. He pulled her into his strong arms, looking at her with a mix of warmth and desire, and kissed her deeply. One hand was behind her head, the other around her waist. He knew this was the turning point. Either she would slap him and go back inside, ending any possibility of something happening, or she would respond to his kiss. She didn't resist, but she didn't fully give in either. "Oh no, what have I done?" she murmured, barely audible. They kissed a little longer before Ellie pulled away. "Sigh, please, I can't do this. Not here and not now." What she didn't say was, "Not ever." Sigh realized he had taken things as far as he could for now. "I'm not going to say I'm sorry, because I'm not. I don't want to hurt Will, but you're amazing. I'm going to leave now, but promise me we can meet later this week to talk about this. Just talk, in a cafe, nothing more. I promise." "I don't know, Sigh. Maybe," her voice trailed off. "Go inside, Ellie. It's cold out here, and Will be coming out soon if you don't go back in." He kissed her once more, passionately, and she returned the kiss. When they finished, he got into his car, and she went back inside, smoothing her hair and adjusting her t-shirt to hide any sign of what had just happened. When she walked in, Will was standing by the table, looking nervous. "I'm sorry, Ellie. I know sometimes Sigh can be a jerk. Maybe I should consider leaving the business and doing something else, something that doesn't involve Sigh. My husband is so loving and kind," she thought to herself. "No, honey, I'm just upset. I'm going to take a hot bath and have a glass of wine. Let me relax a bit, then come up and hold me, okay?" Will, being the loving and kind man he was, had no idea everything was about to change for the worse. He had always trusted her and had no reason to doubt her loyalty. "Sure, honey. Just take your bath and call me when you're ready, and I'll come up." Ellie took a long bath while Sigh went home, showered, and collapsed in his bed. Later, Ellie called Will upstairs, and he happily comforted her, unaware of her deceit. 2 days later, at 10:30 a.m., Sigh and Ellie sat together in their local cafe. Ellie had told Will that morning she needed to have an honest but calm conversation with Sigh. "I need to clear things up," she told her husband. She still wasn't sure what she wanted to do, everything was so confusing. But she knew she had to tell Will. If he found out about their meeting on his own, he might suspect something. "Sigh, this can't continue," Ellie began. It was clear she was still undecided. "Ellie, I'll never pressure you into anything, but I felt what happened on Sunday night. Yes, I kissed you first, but then we kissed each other. We touched each other. We were passionate together. I know something broke in me, and I let myself go, but I love Will, and I won't hurt him with lies and deceit. You need to understand that. I don't want to hurt my friend, Ellie. But that doesn't mean I've decided not to be with you. It can be our little secret. You know I'm not the marrying type. As amazing as you are, I have no intention of trying to take you away from him. I don't think I could, even if I wanted to. But don't you want to enjoy this moment? Don't you want to let go and experience the pleasure we could have together? Sigh, we could have this and make sure Will never finds out. We both know it won't last forever. The most intense things burn out quickly. A few months, maybe a year at most, and it'll be over. But we'll have the memories of an incredible experience with an amazing person for the rest of our lives." Ellie could see that she was beginning to soften. "I know it would be amazing, Sigh, but how can we be sure this won't ruin my marriage with the man I want to spend my life with? People get caught because they're careless and not smart. We're neither of those things, so I'm sure we can keep this without causing problems." No, I don't think so, she replied firmly as she stood up and left the cafe. She was resolute in her decision as she walked to her car, but talking to him had stirred her emotions. Sai wasn't discouraged. He knew she had crossed a line and wouldn't go back. He planned his next steps, grabbed coffee for Will, and returned to the office, ready to lie about Ellie giving him a hard time. A week later, an opportunity arose. Will had to drive to Winston-Salem for a meeting, leaving Ellie with a free evening. She went for a ride after work and came home cold and excited. After a shower, she put on a robe, relaxed by the fire with some wine, and flirted with Will over the phone while she unwound. A soft knock at the back door revealed Sai holding a bottle of wine, and Ellie felt an immediate thrill. She opened the door and kissed him passionately. Sai picked her up and carried her to her bed. She did nothing to resist, and they quickly became intimate. Afterward, she challenged Sai to leave, but that only encouraged him. He loved her resistance and quickly took control. They kissed deeply, and after 2 hours and another shower, they cuddled and fell asleep. Just before drifting off, Ellie thought about Will. Sai set his phone alarm for 6:30 a.m., made coffee while Ellie slept, and thought about their situation and the need for caution. He wondered if a brief affair would be enough with Ellie, who both challenged and fascinated him. Ellie woke to the smell of coffee and joined Sai. After a quiet chat, they went back to the kitchen for more coffee, but quickly became intimate again. 2 hours later, after washing the sheets, Sai left for the office just as Will was getting home. Ellie knew Will would want to be intimate that night and hoped he would claim her. She planned to keep seeing Sai, convinced she could keep their lives separate and enjoy both. "I love Will, and I'll never stop loving him," she told herself, refusing to see her actions as wrong. She didn't question how she could love and remain loyal to Will while committing adultery with his business partner. For the next 8 months, Sai and Ellie met weekly in various places, never the same place twice and often at times hard to detect. They used hotels every third meeting, with Sai claiming the expenses as business trips. Ellie told Will she needed to check on a horse or visit a competitor's stable. Following Ellie's advice, she remained affectionate with Will, who trusted both of them and never suspected anything. When Will mentioned to Sai in August that he was planning to surprise Ellie with a Caribbean cruise for their 10th anniversary in September, Sai decided he would try to organize a weekend getaway with her a week or two before that. He knew Ellie was starting to worry that they were risking too much. Sai wasn't losing interest in her, but he was determined to keep their betrayal hidden from Will. Perhaps this would be their last adventure together, maybe. Back in Charleston recently, Corey gave Ellie one last kiss before heading to the outdoor shower near the master bedroom, knowing that their night would be unforgettable. They never mentioned feeling guilty about the deceitful game they were playing. A few minutes later, Ellie caught up with him, grabbing him and whispering, "Dinner can wait a few minutes," in his ear. His cell phone rang, but he ignored it, a mistake that would turn out to be significant, as unfaithful people often make mistakes eventually. A few minutes later, 3 hours north of Charleston, Will Benton was enjoying some Chinese takeout when his cell phone rang. The area code was 843. Will, familiar with many area codes due to his business, recognized it as Charleston. He thought it was odd since he didn't usually get calls from clients on his cell phone, and he couldn't recall having any close friends in that area. "Hello. Hi, this is Gemma Harnell. I'm trying to reach Ellie Benton. Is she nearby? This is her husband, Will. Can I help you with something? I'm sorry to bother you while you're on vacation, Mr. Benton. Mrs. Benton was with us today on Kai Island, and it seems her wallet may have fallen out of her bag when she left. She probably hasn't noticed it's missing yet, or she would have returned. We tried a cell number from the reservation, but we didn't get an answer. This was the only other number we could find in her wallet, so I decided to call. I'm glad I was able to reach you." Before she could continue, Will interrupted. "Ellie Benton, right?" "Yes, that's correct. Can you confirm the address from her driver's license?" "One moment. 1810, Fallen Leaf Drive, that's our address." But there must be a mistake. Ellie is supposed to be at a horse show in Lexington, Kentucky, this weekend. Will felt his hands begin to sweat. "I'm sorry, sir," said the young woman, sounding nervous. Gemma was also becoming anxious, unsure of the situation and wanting to end the call. "If you talk to her, please let her know we have her wallet at Seabrook Tails." "I will," Will replied, trying to make sense of the situation. "I'll let her know. She'll probably come to pick it up tonight or tomorrow." Will ended the call and turned to his laptop. He opened it to check the itinerary Ellie had given him. She had left early that morning and was supposed to return Sunday night. At the top of the page, it read, Champagne Run Stampers, Lexington, Kentucky, September 10th to 12th. That was this weekend. So apparently, Ellie wasn't there. What was she doing in Charleston or on Kai Island? Will wondered aloud. Why would she lie to me about this? There must be a reasonable explanation, he thought. Will took a moment to consider his options. She could be planning a surprise for them later in the fall, but that could have been done from her laptop. She couldn't be organizing something for their anniversary because he had already mentioned he was planning a surprise. Was there some equestrian event in Charleston this weekend? Maybe she changed her plans at the last minute and didn't tell him because she didn't want him to think she was unreliable. He quickly checked Charleston's visitor website to see if there were any horse-related events, but found nothing. Perhaps she was attending something with her sorority sisters that she didn't want to mention. But why would that be a secret? He wouldn't mind if she went away for the weekend with friends. None of these possibilities made sense. Then Will considered the last idea, the one he didn't want to think about but felt he had no choice but to entertain: she's having an affair. The thought gave him a lump in his throat and a pain in his stomach. Nothing else seemed to fit. He thought he had married the most wonderful, beautiful, intelligent, talented, and loyal woman. What should he do? He needed to think carefully but also stay calm. Will decided to call someone who might help, Sai. He started dialing Sai's number but suddenly stopped. Oh no. He realized something he hoped wasn't true. Sai was supposed to be in Florida visiting his family this weekend, right? Will checked his contacts and called Marty Parker instead. Will. What a surprise. I hope you and my son are still out there conquering the world. Hey, Marty. I'm trying to get in touch with Corey. His cell keeps going to voicemail. He told me he was visiting you and Vera this weekend. It's not urgent, just a quick question. Is he around? I think you're mistaken, Will, Marty said. Sai mentioned he'd be in Hilton Head this weekend with some fraternity friends. Do you want me to try to get in touch with him? Will struggled to stay calm. No problem, Marty. I must have mixed up the weekends. I left him a message, and I'm sure he'll call me back. Say hi to Vera for me, Will said quickly before ending the call. This can't be happening, Will thought, trying to reason with himself. It can't be, my best friend and my wife. Please, no. He spent an hour trying to keep calm. Should he fly out and confront them without knowing their exact location? That wasn't realistic. Should he wait and ask Ellie if she was lying? She would cover her tracks. Ellie wasn't foolish. After an hour of contemplation, he researched North Carolina divorce laws. No-fault divorces were allowed, and since they had no children, there would be no issue of child support. But alimony was different. Ellie would ask for half of his stake in the company, and if she and Sai ended up together, they could push him out. Was that their plan from the beginning? Will also looked into fault-based divorces. Adultery was a valid reason, but proving it was difficult. All he had was a call from a stable. If she and Sai were having an affair, he was in trouble. Will could walk away from the money, that wasn't as important. He had skills and had built a successful company, he could find another job or start a new business. He knew he couldn't play detective for months or pretend to be a loving husband while a private investigator did the work. Realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, Will took 3 Tylenol PM, set his alarm for 8 a.m., and went to bed. After 30 minutes of tears, the medication took effect. Back in Charleston, after midnight, Cy and Ellie sat on the porch after a fantastic dinner, a moonlit walk on the beach, and hours of intense intimacy. The first hour had been rough and aggressive. After their walk, Ellie prepared a bath and told Cy to wait in bed. Corey tried to be patient, but he couldn't hold back any longer. He entered the bathroom with a smile. "No more waiting," Cy growled, pulling her toward him. Ellie would never have accepted this from Will, but Cy's assertive desires drove her wild. She loved how he took control and wanted her so much. Although she knew he had other women, it always seemed like he desired her more, giving her a twisted sense of pride. After a while, they moved to the bedroom. 15 minutes later, they were sitting on the porch, talking quietly and enjoying the afterglow of their time together. "What are we doing, Cy?" "What do you mean, honey? You seem pretty familiar with what we've been doing." "Not that, you fool," she said, lightly hitting him on the shoulder. "Why are we doing this? We've been together for more than 8 months. You have other women, and I have a husband I love." The last word was difficult for her to say. She felt she deeply loved her husband, but it was hard to say it sincerely, given where she was and what she was doing. Cy knew better than to make jokes about Ellie's feelings for Will. He honestly felt some guilt when she mentioned his name. He had known Will for almost 7 years, longer than he had known Ellie. They spent 8 to 10 hours a day together, working and planning. Without any brothers of his own, Will was like family to him. "I don't know, Ellie. I just can't get you out of my head or keep my hands off you. I care about you a lot, and I don't want to hurt Will, but you captivate me, and I need you. Maybe you just can't stand the idea that Will has something you can't have. Maybe. We'll have this weekend, and then Will and I will leave for the cruise on Tuesday. He can never, ever suspect us. You drive me crazy, and I love the intimacy, but I want my life with Will as my husband and, hopefully soon, as the father of my children. I hope you're not saying this weekend will be our last time together." "I'm not sure, but no, I don't think I'm saying that. I don't think you can just stop seeing someone suddenly. Don't get a big idea, but you always make me feel incredible when we're together." Cy looked at her, then at his lap, and back at her with a smile. "It's a little late to tell me not to get a big idea." He then stood up, lifted her in his arms, and carried her to bed. For a brief moment, she wondered if this would be their last time before they gave in to their desires once more. At 8 a.m., Will Benton got out of bed, still groggy from the sleeping pills. He took a cold shower, made coffee, and finalized a plan. He called Sterling private investigators and was promised an answer within 30 minutes. "Mr. Benton, this is Amanda Kingham. How can I assist you?" Will explained his situation. "No problem, Mr. Benton. With your 50% deposit, our team will find them and uncover what they're doing. We have over 30 years of combined experience in surveillance and undercover operations. We'll know where they are in an hour." After a 15-minute conversation, Will transferred the $6,000 deposit. Amanda promised an update by noon. Meanwhile, Ellie checked her voicemail and realized she had forgotten to call Will. She called him from the Mustang while Cy drove her to Kai Island to pick up her wallet. Her call went to voicemail, so she left a sweet but deceptive message about horses and a bad breakfast at the North Lexington Coach Marriott, assuring him that she was excited about their 10th anniversary next week. When they arrived at Kai Island, Ellie quickly retrieved her wallet without hearing about the call from Gemma. They decided to go shopping on King Street and have lunch at slightly north of Broad, SNOB, while waiting for Amanda and her team to work. Will contacted Ed Simmons, a top-tier lawyer and longtime friend of his father. Ed was about to start a round of golf but immediately headed to Will's house after their 5-minute conversation. Ed and Will spent 90 minutes going over the details and discussing options. Ed suspected that Ellie was probably cheating with Cy. At 11:57 a.m., Amanda called with an update. Ellie had been in town and had ridden at Kai Island the previous day. That morning, she and a man matching the description of Cy Parker had picked up her wallet in a red Mustang. The car had been rented by Cy, with a private cabin on the northern end of the island as their listed address. The couple had spent 2 hours shopping on King Street and were currently having lunch at SNOB. Surveillance equipment was being set up in the cabin while they were out. "How on earth did you find all that out so fast?" Will asked. Before Amanda could respond, Ed joined the conversation. Ed Simmons, Will's lawyer. "Amanda, we'll need to follow certain protocols, and I'd like you to record this conversation." They then discussed the plan, impressing Will with their collaboration. Amanda offered several ideas, and Ed accepted them. After ending the call, Ed asked Will if he wanted to fix things with Ellie or proceed with the divorce, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. Will, feeling sure of his decision, stated that Ellie and his business partner had betrayed him, his marriage, and his company. He wanted both of them out of his life as soon as possible, no matter the cost, and he wanted them to feel the pain he was experiencing. As he spoke, tears filled his eyes. Ed gave him a comforting pat on the shoulder. "It's all right, Will. If Amanda and her team find what we're expecting, here's what you need to do." By noon on Sunday, Ellie was anxious. She had called Will 5 times, 3 times on Saturday and twice on Sunday morning. All she got back was a brief and somewhat cold text, "Busy with a crisis. We'll talk Sunday night. Enjoy Lexington." She showed the message to Cy and asked him to call Will to find out what was wrong, assuming it was a work issue. But she wondered, could he have found out? "How am I supposed to call him?" Ellie replied. "He hasn't contacted me about any work issues. If I call, what do I say? Hey, Will, Cy and I are in Charleston having a great time, but she thinks there might be a problem at work, so she asked me to check with you." "You're right, I'm not thinking clearly," Ellie admitted. "It must be a work issue. There's no way he could have found out. You told him you were visiting your family this weekend, so maybe he doesn't want to bother you." "Yeah, that's probably it," Cy agreed, though he didn't sound very convinced. They showered together before heading to the airport. They tried to make love, but Cy noticed Ellie's mind was elsewhere, so he didn't push. He thought to himself, there will be plenty more of this when we come back. If nothing's wrong, I'll have plenty of time with her. 3 minutes after they left the cabin, a van from the surveillance team arrived. 2 technicians entered the house to remove their equipment. 30 minutes later, Amanda and her team were reviewing the recordings. After an hour, one of the technicians commented, "Wow, they really have a lot of energy." Cy dropped Ellie off at the curbside check-in and then went to return the rental car. His phone rang as he was driving away. It was his father. "Hey, Dad. What's up?" "Just checking in, son. I hope you're enjoying Hilton Head." "Yeah, we're playing a lot of golf and eating great seafood. Although my game isn't perfect." "How are you and Mom?" "We're fine, but Will called me Friday night looking for you. He thought you were visiting us this weekend, which was strange because he usually doesn't make mistakes like that. Is everything okay with him?" Cy's heart skipped a beat, but he tried to sound casual. "Will's been a bit stressed lately. He and Ellie are thinking about having kids, and he's worried about that. I'm sure he just got the dates mixed up. I still plan to visit in 3 weeks." Cy decided not to mention this to Ellie. It was probably nothing, and he didn't want to worry her before her flight home. They flew on separate flights to avoid any issues, and both arrived on time. Ellie, carrying only a small bag, went straight to her car and drove home. Everything was calm except for the porch light. She walked toward the front door and saw an envelope with her name on it attached to the door. She tried to open the door, but the key wouldn't turn. Fear began to creep in. Sitting on the porch, she opened the envelope and started crying as she read the note. "Mrs. Benton, your husband, Will Benton, has hired me as his lawyer. He knows about your affair with his business partner, Cy Parker. You were not in Lexington, Kentucky, but in Charleston, South Carolina, with Mr. Parker. Mr. Benton has changed the locks. Since the mortgage is in his name, you cannot enter without his permission. Please find another place to stay for now. Do not contact Mr. Benton directly. He will communicate through my office to discuss the separation and divorce. You may collect your personal belongings from the house under supervision, possibly starting tomorrow morning. Please arrange this through me. I suggest you get your own lawyer. There are funds available in your joint account for immediate expenses. Use your Bank of America debit card. All joint credit cards have been cancelled. You might consider asking Mr. Parker for a place to stay. Ellie took a few minutes to pull herself together. Despite the letter's instructions, she tried calling Will several times. Within 5 minutes, she received a text message from Ed Simmons, insisting she follow the request not to contact Will directly. Ellie felt overwhelmed. Meanwhile, Corey Parker used his keys to enter his condo and found a note from Simmons. Mr. Parker, my client, Mr. Benton, has discovered your affair with his wife, which constitutes adultery. A preliminary audit has revealed that company funds were used for meetings between you and Mrs. Benton, which may result in criminal and civil charges. Mr. Benton would like to discuss the dissolution of your partnership and the purchase of your 50% stake in the company. Seek legal and financial advice. Do not contact Mr. Benton directly, or you will face immediate legal action. Corey cursed under his breath, realizing he had used company funds for their meetings, classifying them as client entertainment. He had even submitted a reimbursement request for $1,000 the previous weekend. The recent audit hadn't flagged any issues, but the auditor could easily detect a pattern. Corey spent the rest of the night drinking bourbon, trying to figure out his next steps. Ellie called and texted him more than a dozen times that night, but he ignored them. I've got huge problems of my own. Sort out your mess and leave me alone, he thought, realizing how quickly a relationship built on lust could fall apart. Ellie sat on her porch, stunned. Her husband knew more than she had thought, and Corey was ignoring her. I guess that shows me where I stand with him, she thought as tears streamed down her face, realizing Corey wouldn't risk anything for her, unlike her husband, who would do anything for her. Meanwhile, at Ed Simmons' residence, Will and Ed were finalizing their plans. Will felt confident that he had hired the right person. Ed had brought in another senior partner, 2 junior lawyers, and a paralegal on a Sunday night to plan their strategy. Will thought, this is going to cost a lot of money, but he smiled, thinking, it's worth it to get rid of that unfaithful wife. Ed assured Will that Ellie and Cy would likely hire their own lawyers soon. He predicted their initial responses would be denial or attempts to minimize the damage. He advised Will to stick to his regular work routine and keep a low profile. You probably won't have much information until midweek, so go to work, keep a low profile, and avoid talking to strangers. And whatever you do, don't take candy from someone in a suspicious van. He smiled, gave Will a big bear hug, and said, don't worry, you're in good hands. Will wasn't sure if he could go home, fearing Ellie might be waiting to confront him. Ed reassured him with a smile, explaining how one of his men had told Ellie to leave since she was trespassing. When she claimed it was her home, he pretended to call the police, and she left quickly. Will smiled sadly. In the days that followed, Will closely followed his lawyer's advice. By Tuesday, he had changed his cell phone number because Ellie kept trying to contact him at work. Corey stayed home, following his lawyer's advice. Will told his team that he and Ellie were having disagreements but were working on them, asking them to treat Cy as a partner for now. Ellie kept herself distracted at the stables, and her boss, Stephanie, noticed. She mentioned that she and Will were having problems but didn't elaborate. Stephanie offered her support. Ellie struggled to find a good lawyer. The first 2 she consulted turned her down due to the likely small compensation. She ended up with Sesam, known for chasing small cases. He promised to get her a great deal, but he had hidden motives. Neither Sesam nor Cy's lawyer, James Avery, had much time. Ed Simmons, a well-regarded lawyer with strong connections, pushed for a quick hearing just after Ellie was served with papers 2 days after returning home. Avery knew he was up against a tough opponent. Even if he understood the situation, he knew Ed would be a tough negotiator. He advised Cy to offer to sell his stake in the business at a reduced price, which would help cover his expenses and legal fees. Cy agreed to offer to sell his share for 80 cents on the dollar. Simmons received the offer and suggested that we'll counter with an offer of 10 cents on the dollar. We'll probably settle somewhere around 30 cents, Ed said. I know Avery well. Even if he understands the situation, he'll still be a tough negotiator. Will wanted to make Corey suffer. Offering 10 cents on the dollar would nearly bankrupt Cy, which seemed fair to Will. But he knew he had to follow his lawyer's advice. Even at 30 cents on the dollar, it would still hurt Cy significantly, so Will decided to leave the rest to chance or deal with it later. 3 days later, Ed closed a deal for Will. We settled at 28 cents on the dollar, Ed told Will over the phone. It's not as harsh as you wanted, but it's still a big win for you. Will expressed his gratitude. Ed then raised a more difficult topic. Will, you need to sit down and talk to Ellie. A judge will want to see that you've made an effort to communicate with her. Even if you're heading toward divorce, it's always better to have answers ready before a judge starts asking questions. We've been assigned Judge Kim Landis for our case. She can be strict about trying to resolve issues and might even require counseling. I won't get into all the details now, but it's time to have that conversation. I'll arrange it for you. We'll start with a counselor present, but it would be wise to also have a private conversation with her. Show that you can stay calm and be respectful despite the situation. It will help your case to prove that you're reasonable. Will sighed, knowing Ed was right but dreading the conversation. All right, Ed, set it up. Ed sympathized with Will, remembering his own heartbreak during the first Gulf War when his partner, Becky, left him. He believed that Will would eventually be okay, but it wasn't the right time to bring it up. Ed's focus was on supporting Will and making sure he didn't feel alone. The meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon, with Ed wanting Will to have the weekend to recover from the difficult conversation. They planned to spend the first 30 minutes with their lawyers present, then Will and Ellie would have some time alone. Ellie and her lawyer, Caesar, arrived on time. Caesar wore a standard suit, likely from JCPenney, and Ellie wore a simple light blue dress with a burgundy sweater, her hair in a ponytail, and Michael Kors glasses. Ed and Will stood up as they entered the private conference room at Simmons and Boff. The room was isolated, requiring navigation through several hallways, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. Ed knew that Caesar's office was modest, with part-time staff. Will, still in love with Ellie, felt a lump in his throat when he saw her. Despite her betrayal, she looked beautiful to him. He gave her a polite smile but avoided any affectionate gaze. It's good to see you, Will, Ellie said, studying him closely, possibly trying to see if there was still love in his heart for her. Will nodded and replied, Ellie, thank you for coming. Ed maintained a neutral expression but thought to himself, good job. Stay calm and don't show her anything. Shall we begin? Ed asked, motioning everyone to take a seat. Yes, thank you, Caesar interrupted, perhaps hoping to gain an advantage. My client is here to see what her husband is willing to do to save their marriage. Ed cut him off, pulling a thick file from the end of the table and sliding it across. Caesar, surprised, asked, I didn't think we were supposed to handle omitted information. Inside, you'll find recordings and photos of your client's activities in Charleston, South Carolina, from 3 weeks ago. We also have witnesses from the hotel staff who saw your client and Mr. Cy Parker check in as a married couple, using false names. These incidents occurred over a period of 6 months. Our investigators have been very thorough, and the evidence is clear and undeniable. Given the explicit content of the photos, I suggest you review them after the meeting. Ellie flinched as Ed described the contents of the file. The idea that Will had seen photos of her intimate moments made her uncomfortable. She kept a polite smile, but what once seemed exciting and romantic now felt like a betrayal of a loving and good man. She struggled to maintain her composure. Ed pushed a second, much thinner file across the table. It contained only 2 pages. "Counselor, this is Mr. Benton's offer for the divorce settlement," Ed said, looking directly at Ellie. He added, "Personally, I think the terms are more than fair. If it were up to me, I would present all the evidence to the judge to show the extent of Mrs. Benton's premeditated betrayal. However, Mr. Benton, being a decent man, has asked me to make this offer instead." Ed's experience in legal matters was clearly working in his favor. Ellie looked defeated, and Caesar seemed out of his depth. Ed knew they wouldn't reach an agreement today. The first court hearing was in 2 weeks, and there would be more negotiations before they appeared before a judge. Will's offer was harsh given the circumstances but reasonable given his wife's deceit. Will offered a one-time payment of $75,000 in exchange for Ellie agreeing that he would be the sole owner of the company forever. She would waive any future claims. They would split the proceeds from the sale of the house, which wouldn't be much, as they had only lived there for 5 years, each would receive about $110,000. Ellie could keep her car but would have to start making payments on it herself 1 month after the divorce. She could take any furniture she wanted from the house, except the marital bed and a pair of antique rocking chairs that belonged to Will. Will planned to burn the bed in the backyard before he moved, which he eventually did. Ellie could keep all the jewelry Will had bought her, except for the engagement and wedding rings, which had to be returned the day the divorce was finalized. Ellie had to agree that the divorce was based on her infidelity. There was an additional page with more details about the agreement, but the main points were clear and straightforward. "My client and I will review this offer and respond with our counteroffer early next week," Caesar said, trying to sound like his client was in the right. "However, I can tell you that Mrs. Benton will not agree to return her rings." Ed was furious inside at the audacity of Caesar's comments but kept his calm demeanor. He leaned forward and spoke again. "Caesar, you and I both know that your client deliberately broke her marriage vows with Cy Parker. She knew her actions could destroy my client's emotional well-being and jeopardize his business partnership, which is why they went to great lengths to cover it up and keep my client in the dark. Their actions were cruel and heartless. If you want to take this case before Judge Landis, go ahead. I'll be happy to challenge you in her courtroom. To be honest, counselor, you have no case. Your client has cheated and lied. We have overwhelming evidence, and while we don't want to, we will make it all public in court if you try to cause further harm to my client. If I don't hear from you by noon on Tuesday, the offer will be off the table, and we'll see you in court." Caesar was frustrated, but even he knew that Ed had the upper hand. This deal was a good offer for Ellie. She would gain $75,000 before taxes, which was more than she usually made in 2 months. "Unless there's anything else," Ed said, standing and buttoning his jacket, "I think we should give Will and Ellie a few minutes for a private conversation." Caesar stood and shook Ed's hand. "We'll be in touch," was all he said. Ed shook Caesar's hand and then went to the men's room to wash his hands. Will and Ellie were left alone. Ed had advised Will to remain silent and let her speak first since he was the one who had been wronged. Once the lawyers left and the door closed, there was a tense silence. Will looked at Ellie, who was staring at the floor. Finally, Ellie spoke. "I have no excuses, Will. If I could undo everything, I would. My actions have hurt you deeply, and I'll have to live with that for the rest of my life. Apologizing or saying it was just sex would only make things worse, but I want you to know how devastated I am by how badly I've treated you. Believe whatever you want, Will. I don't care." Will didn't respond. Ellie continued. "Is there any chance for us, Will? Do you think with counseling we could fix things? I don't want a divorce. I never wanted it. I'm willing to do anything you ask. I just want us to stay together." Will was struggling to keep his emotions under control. She had already taken everything from him, and now she wanted more, all at his expense. "Ellie, if the court orders counseling, I will go," he said. This gave Ellie a glimmer of hope. But know this, I have no desire to be with you again. I loved you and gave you my heart, mind, and soul. You repaid me by sleeping with my former best friend. I don't recognize you anymore, except as someone who betrayed me. I will never be with you again, and there is no way I would ever have children with you. You want my forgiveness, but you destroyed any chance of that when you so willingly and frequently betrayed me with Corey. Ellie turned pale at his words. Will, do you really hate me that much? Yes, Ellie. Today, I do. Your question only shows how selfish you are. I am focused on getting over my feelings for you as quickly as possible. I plan to feel nothing for you, not love, not pity, nothing. I want to stop thinking about you entirely. You're not worth the pain. I gave you countless kisses and years of my life. I trusted you completely, and you took it all. You will figure out how to move forward, whether standing tall or on your back, but it won't be with me. You'll have your horses and your lover. That should be enough for you. She tried a few more tactics, offering unlimited intimacy, promising never to see Sai again, and even suggesting counseling to understand her choices. But nothing made a difference. After another 30 minutes, the conversation ended. Will you walk me to my car? Just one last moment together, she asked. Walk yourself, Ellie, or call Sai to come pick you up and go back with him. I'm done. Will stood to leave but turned back with one last comment. We had everything, Ellie, and you threw it all away. I've got to give Corey credit, he must be something. In the days that followed, Caesar and Ellie tried to persuade Ed Simmons to adjust the divorce demands, but Simmons stood firm and eventually stopped taking their calls. As the Tuesday deadline approached, Ellie realized she had little chance of getting more than what Will had offered. Corey called her, and desperate for affection, she agreed to meet him at his condo. She spent the night there, and they were intimate multiple times. Simmons had an investigator stationed outside who recorded her leaving in the morning, looking disheveled. The evidence was handed to Simmons later. As Ed reviewed the images, he murmured, "No one can be this stupid." Ellie returned to her rented one-bedroom apartment and called Caesar, telling him to accept the divorce petition as it was. When he tried to argue, she hung up. At the initial hearing, Judge Landis lived up to her tough reputation, thoroughly questioning both sides. Caesar struggled while Simmons was well prepared with solid evidence. Judge Landis asked many questions to both Will and Ellie, with Will being well prepared and Ellie not. At the end of the hearing, Judge Landis said, "The evidence in this case seems overwhelming. I will take a couple of months to review everything and may contact both lawyers with further questions. If I do, I expect prompt responses." Understood. Both lawyers agreed. Judge Landis had a busy schedule, so it took 3 months before she called everyone back for the final decision. Based on the evidence, it's clear this is a straightforward case of adultery. Normally, there are 2 sides to every troubled marriage, but Mrs. Benton, I can't understand why you left your husband for Mr. Parker. I've heard that Mr. Parker sold his share of the company for a fraction of its value, which confirms my opinion. Normally, I would order counseling, but Mrs. Benton's betrayal seems to make any possibility of reconciliation impossible. Mrs. Benton, I strongly suggest you reflect on your choices and work toward a better life on your own. Mr. Benton's divorce petition is granted, and the marriage is officially terminated. This case is closed. There were no celebrations on Will's side in the courtroom. He and Ed shook hands quietly. Caesar left quickly, leaving Ellie alone at the table. Ellie stood and walked out of the courthouse alone. Will began his new life as a single man, feeling hurt but knowing he wasn't alone. 5 months after the divorce, Sai had an accident. He fell down 3 flights of stairs while leaving his condo and spent 3 weeks in the hospital. At the time of the fall, his blood alcohol level was 0.5, nearly twice the legal limit, and he couldn't remember the accident. His insurance had expired while he was looking for work, so his hospital bills drained all his savings. Will heard about the accident while traveling through Great Smoky Mountains National Park and thought, it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. The police discovered that on the night of the accident, Corey had been with Ellie. Detectives learned they were having an affair and that Corey had also been seeing someone else. Ellie was charged with aggravated assault and sentenced to 3 years in prison. It was a difficult experience for her. Sai now walks with a significant limp and works as tech support for a local junior college.